The Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, September 15th. I am Andy Holloway, and I am here with Jason Moore and Mike, the Fantasy Hitman, right?
You are correct.
And
Yes.
We are officially done with week one.
It was so fun. So much fun to watch football and have it matter.
It was interesting. We saw a little bit of what we expected. We saw a little bit of what we did not expect. Saw a couple good games last night. Both of them were, well, at least
We
one,
had one good game.
One good game with competent announcers. One more game with the biggest 49er fan that I've ever known,
And here's
Trent.
what I learned.
Blowhorn.
This is what I
Dilfer.
learned from that game. If you have a lack of confidence in what you're saying, you just say it louder.
That is
because
correct.
the louder you are, the more truth and more weight that your statement can carry. Trent Dilfer should never announce a game. See?
Except for you're very confident of that.
Well,
in which
that-
case you
yeah,
could have
we-
just stated it normally.
All it made was truth amplified.
That could have been whispered.
Amplified is not the word I want to hear right now. That's terrifying. Trent Dilfer was terrible.
Dilfer should not do football games.
Oh my gosh.
It's still true.
Yes, that was driving me crazy. Other than Adrian Peterson on mute, I put him on mute as well.
Oh, come on now.
We'll go over that game. We'll talk about today's a waiver show. We're going through all of the waiver pickups you want to pay attention to for week number 2 coming up, which is, this is adjustment time for your team. This is also overreaction time for your league mates. So take advantage of the overreactions, and we'll give you some guidance, some guys that you can buy low on, some guys that we think you should pick up. And we'll also tell some people not to trade their really good players just because they had a bad week one. AP is not flying out the window, is he?
I've
Didn't you
seen
tell
some
me-
questions.
Didn't you tell me somebody traded Eifert for Gronk?
Yeah. Well, somebody had tweeted us yesterday. They had Eifert and I can't remember the second player, but it was of no consequence for Gronkowski, and this offer was in flux. This wasn't just a negotiation. The offer had been sent, and he was waiting to accept it.
wow.
And we said, yes, you get Gronkowski immediately.
That
that.
is incredible. So we'll talk about a bunch of waiver guys. You can follow us on Twitter at the FFBallers. Visit the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, and you can find out more about the show, how you can support the show, join the fantasy community at jointhefoot.com. We are on the Fantasy Sports Network. You can watch us 3 times a day on there. We are on YouTube, and we are in your pocket.
Yeah. I watch this 3 times a day.
I'm not sure. Quick question for the day. Carlos Hyde will finish the year as the number
Oh, man.
blank running back.
I'm going to go 8.
I'm going to go 7. I feel like I'm really overreacting.
12. 12.
That's more. I like
that's
that
where I'm
better.
at.
I'm dropping down 10. 10.
Can I
The
get an 11?
the correct answer was 1. Number 1 best running. No, it was an impressive game.
Yeah.
Mike and I were talking before the show, kind of a perfect storm of sorts where the offensive line was had the Vikings on skates, and Hyde was pretty nimble for a big guy. Got outside. The game kind of just, I think they wore down. I think that's what you saw a lot of, and Reggie Bush got hurt, and so we'll talk about some of that in the news and notes. But a good, impressive game for those doubting Carlos Hyde. I think we were kind of just in the middle on him. We never talked him up a bunch. We never talked him down a bunch. We just kind of didn't talk about him a lot because we didn't know what that offense would be and what that defense would be, and the defense impressed me. So every once in a while on the show, we like to read a review from the listeners, and so we're going to do that right now.
Reviewosaurus Rex.
This one comes in from Jeff from the capital of Canada, which we all know.
Yeah.
He says, "Hello, fellas. I've been listening to the podcast since March, and a lot of the advice you've been given I've been taking. For example, you guys were really high on Julio, first rounder, and Jeremy, second rounder. Then you guys started off talking up Eifert, 10th rounder, and Carson Palmer, 11th rounder. And I think it was Mike who made an off-the-cuff remark back in early July about how you really don't say much about defenses early on, but if you were going to take one, take the Jets. 14th rounder of 15. All this to say I had the best Yahoo fantasy day ever. Thanks, and keep that advice coming. Well, thank you, Jeff from Ottawa.
Did you look it up?
No, I know that.
Is it Ottawa?
I
Everybody knows that. Well, thank you very much. Not every week will be like this, Jeff. Everyone will lose. But thank you for listening, and we really appreciate the reviews on iTunes, on Stitcher, wherever you're listening. If you love the show, if you consider yourself part of the Foot Clan, go ahead and drop us a review. We really appreciate it. Helps our rankings out.
All right, let's talk news and notes.
News and notes from around the league.
All right, there is plenty of news to discuss, but we're going to just hit the highlights, the main focuses that we need to pay attention to heading into week 2, because we've got a lot to discuss in the waiver wire segment of the show. So, injury news. Deshaun Jackson, who was injured on the first play of the second drive, I believe, he has a hamstring injury, and they're expecting 3 to 4 weeks. Is that what you guys are hearing?
That's exactly what I'm hearing, and that is not just a concern for he's gone for 3 to 4 weeks, but hamstring injuries, and this sounds like a bad one, tend to linger if he comes back too early at all. Deshaun Jackson is his downfield speed guy. That's his game. That could be a concern for re-injury.
Jason, do you move up Pierre Garçon at all?
Yeah, absolutely. He's going to get more targets, more balls. Pierre Garçon has always, through his entire career, between good quarterbacks and bad quarterbacks, been he has always stayed the same efficiency-wise. It's just been a matter of targets, and his targets are about to go up, and he's been good before. So,
and a Jordan Reed alert for those who look for a tight end this week. Reggie Bush was injured last night. It looked very bad. He had a case of riding the cart depression as he was going off the field that made you think his season was over. I had people on Twitter. I almost reported one thinking it was an actual news report, but it was a theory. Someone said that they thought he had a fractured fibula. Not the case. Injured calf strain.
Allegedly.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we don't really know the answer because we haven't heard it, but that is the report this morning, and so it could be better news, kind of like the Ellington situation where you thought, and then he might be back in a week or two. So the big news yesterday was Dez Bryant's foot injury. It had been reported 4 to 6 weeks. You heard it here on the show yesterday. Mike with the hookups saying that he thought Dez would be out a lot longer. We came to the knowledge that this was the same injury that Kevin Durant had sustained and some other players had sustained, including Marvin Jones.
And Marvin Jones missed an entire season.
Yeah, the prognosis is now looking more 8 to 12. 8 to 12 for Dez.
But Andy, Dez came out today and said, "Don't pay any attention to that."
Did he?
Yeah, Dez said
Is this the same Dez Bryant that was shirtless, barefoot, and screaming in the tunnel at the end of the game?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And the deal with this injury is this isn't a question of toughness. This is just how fast does your body happen to heal. There's not much you can do to rehab it. It's a bone. You have to see how long it takes to heal. So I'm getting a lot of questions of Dez for this guy. I think I just answered one. Was Dez and Vincent Jackson for Odell Beckham? I said, yeah, you do that immediately. I mean, it's not a
all hope is lost is what you're saying, but what you're saying is make plans for not having Dez.
Yeah,
for your team so you can win.
If Dez is out 12 weeks and you're just in a redraft, he has basically zero value to you. I mean, great, he could come back for the playoffs if you happen to make it that far, or you have an IR spot and you can
4
shelve
weeks
him.
and 12 weeks is such a big difference, though. I mean,
right?
You could make a mistake, couldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean,
if you sold too early.
Yeah, if you sold too early.
When is their bye? I heard week 8 was a good.
I think week 5 is their bye.
Okay.
So I mean,
look it up.
You're gonna have this is gonna be a fluid situation, but don't count on 4 weeks either.
Yeah, and I'm not saying sell him for junk, but if somebody's trying to buy it and it's a little bit low, but you get a decent offer like that you can get Odell Beckham for Dez and Vincent Jackson. Yeah, I'm taking that.
Another injury to report that is of significance. A lot of people counted on Eli for better numbers than what he put up this past week. And now the Giants' rookie left tackle Eric Flowers, who was going to step into this role right away, is having an MRI on his ankle. And so there is some concern there.
Yeah, that's not good. The bye week is week 6.
Okay.
for Dallas.
Yeah. So, any other news we had? We can talk about this in the waivers. I'm gonna save the other one for the waiver wire. So, and that's just Zach Ertz related.
So, as we know, fantasy football season is actually upon us. And not only is that great news for your season long, but that is fantastic news for daily sports. We're talking about FanDuel, people. FanDuel is the leader in 1 week fantasy football with more winners and more payouts than any other site. They are paying out over $75 million a week this football season. It's a salary cap format. You pick any players you want for just 1 week. So you don't want Des Bryant? He killed you? Don't worry about it. You don't have to play him. Entry fees start at just $1. Anyone can play. So this is what we need you to do. Foot Clan, this is the most important part. Go to FanDuel.com. Click on the microphone in the upper right-hand corner. Use our code BALLERS. BALLERS. And they will match you up to $200. Up to $200 if you are a new user. FanDuel.com. Promo code BALLERS.
Anyone can play. Only Carlos Hyde owners can win.
That is
Isn't
very
that-
true.
Oh, maybe for last week. So we also want to remind you, we get tweeted every day. What is that? What is that app that you guys keep talking about for buying tickets? I want to go to a game. And the answer to that is SeatGeek. Jason, tell the Foot Clan about SeatGeek.
I love the SeatGeek app. That's the only way that I would buy tickets because it's clearly the best. There's 3 things that really set them apart. They take tickets from every source. They've got over 100 different sources that they pull tickets from. And then they have something called a deal score where they actually show you this is the best price ticket at this spot, and it shows up on a score of 1 to 100. And the mobile app, you don't have to enter in CAPTCHA stuff. You just literally put your info in once, and you can buy a ticket in a second for any event, not just sports, but sports are great. So to redeem and save $20 on your first purchase with tickets, download the free SeatGeek app today. Enter our promo code FOOTBALLERS in the app, and then SeatGeek will send you $20 once you've made your first SeatGeek purchase. Every ticket purchased on SeatGeek is backed by 100% guarantee. Download the free SeatGeek app and enter promo code FOOTBALLERS today.
Yeah, I love the feedback on that. People have enjoyed it. They've gotten tickets at cheaper prices, which mean they can go to more games. So let's go ahead and spend some time talking about the waivers.
Put me in, coach.
All right, everybody likes to talk waivers because you want to make your team better. You want to grab the guy that will last, that will make it through the season as a value to your team, not just a guy that flashed week 1. And so let's go. We're going to go position by position here. I want to hear from Jason and Mike about who their top targets are, about which guys are mirages from week 1 and which guys have some, sustainability. And so these should help prioritize your waiver wires in your leagues, whether you're in fab leagues. So that's free agent auction budget. Is that right? Free agent acquisition budget. We had that debate on the show once.
Yeah, I think
it's acquisition budget, which is leagues where you can spend some of your $100, $200 cap, or waiver wire leagues in which it's kind of reverse order of standings, and so you're kind of hoping
burn your priority.
You burn your priority. So, all right, let's start at the wide receiver position. We have kind of 2 categories of guys. We've got guys that we think had a good week 1 and we want to sign, and then we have guys that are going to benefit from some injuries. So let's start with Jason. Jason, who is your kind of top target at the wide receiver position in the waivers this week?
For me, my top target is Terrence Williams. I think he's got a long-term. We just talked about Dez being out for a while. Terrence Williams is now the number 1 wide receiver for a good chunk of time. And when Dez was there, I liked Terrence Williams. I was drafting him on a lot of my teams. I think he's worth having, even as a number 2. He has the talent, and I think this offense is good enough to be a number 1. So you've got a guy sitting on waivers in most leagues that I believe you can start as a wide receiver 2 on your team with a bit of confidence. I mean, I think he's going to put up a ton of yards on the season and every now and then get a touchdown. So he's no Dez. He's not going to be a flat replacement, but a quality player for a long time.
And a third-year wide receiver.
Yeah,
there's
there's a lot of room for him to take a leap forward. And opportunity, we talk about it a lot, right? You need talent, he's got it, but you need opportunity, and now he's got it. So for me, that's the guy that I'm wanting. I love Dante Moncrief because T.Y. Hilton went down, but I just pretty much the difference maker is the length of injury. and length of opportunity, I like it for Terrence Williams.
I agree. I do like Terrence Williams. I'm going back and forth between him and Dante Moncrief as my number one wide receiver priority. Moncrief had 11 targets in this game against the Bills. We know that the Colts are a high-volume passing team. That's my one concern with Terrence Williams is they seem still very committed to the run and how much will Romo actually pass the ball. But for Moncrief, it's not just the T.Y. Hilton injury that I think that gives him a boost of value right now, but I think he can sustain year-long value because Andre Johnson, honestly, it was just one game, so we're not going to
Well, the whole offense was terrible, to his credit. I mean,
yes, yeah, that I agree with that, but Andre Johnson in particular just didn't look great. He had a 6.0 average for his receptions, which is extremely low. And Moncrief his talent has been talked about for a while. We were hoping he would kind of really break out last year, and then this year the dousing of the fire was the Philip Dorsett draft pick, but Moncrief was clearly the guy. I mean, preseason fools us all, people, where we thought Dorsett was sneaking into the third role, but it was clearly Moncrief. So even once Hilton comes back, because we don't know if he's going to miss 1-3 weeks, we don't know, but I think Moncrief is still going to have value because they went 3 wide a lot.
All right, let me give you some other names on the waiver pickup list that might be sitting on your waiver wire depending on your league size. So Brandon Coleman from New Orleans. What did you see out of him? Good, bad, ugly. Is he worth having on your team right now?
He's worth having. He got me watered this week, so that stinks.
We had a bet, correct? That was...
it was Ryan Matthews, which, let me just say, my dreams, they come true. Thank you, Ryan Matthews, and thank you, Jordan Matthews, as well, for not
Snoring
you think Chip Kelly.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank that ref that made the wrong call.
Yeah, there's a whole lot to make my dreams come true.
Hey, but they did.
Yeah, but they did, and they were real dreams.
Yet,
he got it.
And yet, Brandon Coleman, and we made a bet, flex position, right? Total fantasy points, Brandon Coleman and Ryan Matthews, and the result was...
Splash.
I will be getting wet there, and I also need to blame a couple of the holding calls on the Eagles because Ryan Matthews had a couple 20-yard receptions. So here's my take on Brandon Coleman. I don't think he's all that talented. He dropped some passes. He looked slow, but he's big. He's a red zone target. That's what he did this last week. He got a touchdown. Marquise Colston looks not good. And so I think that's another opportunity play. He's going to be pretty decent this year just because he has to be. There's just not a whole bunch of more options there.
All right, one of my life goals before this season was to never speak the name James Jones again. And unfortunately, he has forced my hand with a really good game. I underestimated the kind of cohesion and comfort level of Aaron Rodgers with James Jones to the point where he could come in and basically take every snap away from Ty Montgomery and Jeff Janis. And so the result of that was he still was third on the team in targets in terms of wide receivers, but he had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, and
he was targeted for a third.
The thing to not freak out about to overreact with James Jones, 4 targets. Now he did this before. It was a couple years ago. The old James Jones with very, very minimal target volume and still scored, I think, double-digit touchdowns. So not saying it can't happen, but he's not a guy that I'm looking to blow my priority or my fab.
There's been a lot of questions.
That's the question.
Well, who do you want? Do you want Devontae Adams or do you want?
I want the guy who's getting the target.
Yeah, you definitely want Devontae Adams. I mean, Devontae
Give
Adams.
me the young, talented second-year wide receiver
who's
and not
getting the targets.
Yeah, not the old. He's got size. I'd be targeting James Jones in the end zone too. I'm not targeting underneath guys. Adams is a slant to the end zone guy, and Cobb is a fade route or an underneath route. So Jones just has opportunity, like you said. I would sign him if I needed a wide receiver kind of flyer, but I wouldn't burn a big priority like Mike said. And then 3 other guys, Kendall Wright, Stevie Johnson, Pierre Garçon, all had very good week 1s. Wright had 4 targets only. I believe he ran we looked this number up. It was 10 routes, 11 routes in the first half.
It was a very, very low amount of routes, but
he still put up 4, 101 and 1 and looked great with Mariota.
Yeah, and I still like Kendall Wright in PPR formats. I don't think he's going to be knocking off a 50-yard touchdown every single week, but he's like we had said a week ago or so, I feel kind of dumb for not having any shares of Kendall Wright.
And then Stevie Johnson's worth mentioning because Keenan Allen had such a humongous game that maybe the stat line of Stevie Johnson was overlooked, but 682 and a touchdown is a great line. Yeah. It shows involvement. It shows targets. Caught all 6 of his targets, so confidence for Rivers. Not every week's going to be that way, but I like Stevie Johnson if he's sitting there on your waiver wire, and then we talked about Pierre Garçon with the injury. So let's go ahead and rotate to the running back position, and we'll start with guys that kind of benefited from injury situations. And so the first one would be, Andre Ellington is out for at least a couple weeks, most likely, PCL injury. I need to start somebody this week, Jason, and I'm going to start which Arizona running back?
If you have to start somebody this week, I would start Chris Johnson. I would
the man
also,
without a song.
Yes. I would also be fine this week, assuming Andre Ellington is out.
Chris Johnson.
I would be fine also starting David Johnson because he is going to get touches this game. I think he's going to split, and I think he might do more with the touches. So, but I think both are decent plays. Both are good pickups.
Are you saying Chris Johnson's kind of like the Joik Bell of the situation?
Yeah, so give me David Johnson.
Yeah.
So how much when it comes to is this the top acquisition here at running back? Is this who you'd be putting your money on?
If I need a guy for next week, I agree. It's David.
More than
Johnson.
More than Deion Lewis.
Yeah, Deion Lewis might have another week, but man, you just to burn your priority in fab on a New England
Patriots running
back is just not wise. Yeah. He could.
He always
be
one fumble from disaster.
And LeGarrette Blount will be back as well. I mean, that was a big difference.
He got a lot of first and second down work. Lewis did. Yeah.
Your before we get too far, your Chris Johnson song that sounded like Sad Crossfire.
Chris Johnson.
Oh, it was. You'll get caught up in the. No.
Hashtag Crossfire.
David Johnson, I think, has more value in half point or full PPR because I think he's going to be handling the pass work.
Exactly.
But Arians has said rookies have to earn their way in. I think David Johnson has the talent to do that. If Ellington is out for more than just a couple weeks, which I think is a strong possibility, so I'm looking to add David Johnson to my bench if I don't need him immediately.
I would be signing Chris Johnson to play this week without a question. I mean, Arians was very unequivocal in coming out and saying Chris Johnson's the lead dog, and you're looking at goal line opportunities there. They'll all go to Chris Johnson.
And they're playing the Bears, am I correct?
Yes, you are correct.
And Eddie Lacy.
Start your Cardinals.
Not Chris Johnson's not Eddie Lacy, but I'd fire Chris Johnson up.
Chris Johnson.
Yeah. What? Don't do that.
Hey, maybe.
Don't soil a beautiful melody.
We'll see. See what my dreams say.
All right, Carlos Williams, Ronnie Hillman, Darren Sproles. Let's talk about these guys. Sproles, I started him in one of my 3 major leagues because he's Darren Sproles. How many wheel routes can you run consecutively? He broke the world record yesterday. Every time out of the backfield. I mean, Bradford passed 52 times. And if you watch Sproles, he lines up in the backfield, wheel route. I mean, and what are you supposed to do as a linebacker? You have to run with him. And if you're a linebacker running with him, he's going to catch a ball.
He's so fast for being his age. Isn't he older now? Isn't he like...
Yeah, he's 85.
Wow, that's really fast for an 85-year-old. He would be, if he's on waivers, I think I would target him ahead of either Arizona running back.
32.
32. Yeah, really, because I think that the upside is not, say, David Johnson. I think David Johnson has a much higher upside. But
yeah, I would not do
David Johnson,
what Jason is saying.
David Johnson and Chris Johnson are waiting for Andre Ellington to come back, and then they're still going to be in a 3-way timeshare. I think that...
Like Sproles is in permanently.
Well, but Sproles is a wide receiver on almost every play. I mean, they'll have plays where he's in, and also keep in mind, 2-minute drills, every 2-minute drill,
yep.
Every third down, Darren Sproles was the guy on every single one of them. So, yeah, I mean, I
7
like
catches, 76 yards, 50 yards rushing, led the team in rushing. Certainly an argument on Jason's side is Sproles' week 1 performance. Let's talk about Carlos Williams because I think there'll be a lot of overreaction to the fantasy stat line for Carlos Williams because he broke a very, 25-yard touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
He's a handcuff to me.
Yep, he's still just a handcuff. It's the Shady McCoy show, although the Boobie Dixon goal line carry was interesting
That's a good word.
to say the least. We still don't know if that's just week one because Shady's still coming off the hamstring.
Well, and I told Jason this yesterday. If you watch the game, Shady McCoy scored a touchdown that got called back. He had like a 15, 20-yard run. He also had an end around that set up the Boobie Dixon 1 yard that he dove for the pylon. So, I mean, McCoy could have had 2 touchdowns. He ended up with none, still had a good game receiving. I'm not worried about him. Carlos is a handcuff. And just seeing Carlos play, he looks to me like a handcuff. So, Lance Dunbar, let's talk about him for a second because I wouldn't blow a bunch of fab money or waiver position on Lance Dunbar, but at the same time, he had more total snap percentage than any of the other guys. Was this more game situation because of their third down, 2-minute drill type of situation?
Yeah, I think so. But Lance Dunbar we had kind of talked about this, that his role of any Dallas running back as of now is the most secure because he's the pass catching back. It's not Randall and it's definitely not Darren McFadden. So if you want in on that backfield and you're in a PPR format, he's a sneaky guy who can get you, who can be an okay flex flyer on occasions.
They don't win that game without Lance Dunbar. I'll tell you that.
But you've got to, if you're going to start him, it can only be in matchups where you're going up against a high-powered offensive team when Dallas is, because if they get a lead, Lance Dunbar is nothing.
I agree. Let's talk tight ends, okay? It was the week of the tight end. So often this happens because there are, we talked all offseason about the fact that there are very few kind of difference-making tight ends. And that's the truth every single year, and that's how it will be at the end of the year. I think there will be very few difference-making tight ends. But 1 week happens, and guys are going to perform, and so it's kind of – this is what I consider the hardest position to parse in terms of guys lasting and not lasting. I mean, Eric Ebron comes out and has 4 catches for 53 yards and a touchdown. Austin Seferian-Jenkins comes out and scores 2 touchdowns. Darren Fells out of Arizona had a very big week. Jordan Reed had a very big week. So if you're putting those guys, those 4, in order of who you'd want for the remainder of the year as your tight end, how do you order those guys?
I would go Jordan Reed, Seferian-Jenkins, Ebron Fells. I think Reed got a ton of targets. I believe the most on the team.
Which should only go up with, or at least stay the same with DJ.
Yeah, 11 targets. I don't know if that was the team high, but he had 11 targets. Seferian-Jenkins, we knew he could possibly break out. People have talked about him because Winston liked his tight end so much when he was in college. Ebron is game dependent. I think he'll score sometimes, but he'll be really frustrating. He's going to be one of those fluctuating guys. And Darren Fells, the Bruce Arians' system has never really produced a high-level tight end. And I think that was there was one kind of really big broken play where Darren Fells happened to get a huge chunk of his yards. But my number 1 waiver priority for tight end, hopefully you already drafted him, Tyler Eifert. That worked out pretty well.
I was going to say, he was on waivers for a lot of leagues.
Yeah, he needs to be talked about.
The leagues I have him in, I drafted him with the last pick before defense and kicker. And honestly, it was a hard decision in some leagues because it was like, okay, Owen Daniels or Tyler Eifert. And Eifert certainly paid off this week, but the real question is, I guess you answered it. I mean, so I'll ask Jason, but does it sustain itself for Tyler Eifert over the course of the season? I mean, you're not going to get 2 touchdowns and 13 targets or whatever it was and 9 catches, but what is Tyler Eifert? He finishes the year where?
He finishes the year definitely, I think, top 6. I would say in the top half of the tight ends because he is a weapon that was drafted in the NFL to be a weapon. He is a big, strong, athletic guy. Andy Dalton, I think, is going to use him. He's a red zone target. You're not going to have him. I don't see him as a plug-in, week out type of guy where you're just always going to win that matchup. He's going to have bad weeks, but I would be fine starting him any week as a guess that it could be this week. I know, Andy, you have Tyler Eifert in our main head-to-head league, and I have Greg Olson, who put up a stinker, and you had joked about a trade for trading Tyler Eifert for Greg Olson, and this is one of those
called overreaction attempt.
That's perfect. So if you can get Greg Olson for Tyler Eifert in your league or something like that, those are things that I think you should take advantage of and make that move because his name, Tyler Eifert, right now after that week, he's
hot. He's the new hotness.
Stuff.
That's funny you're talking Olson because Eifert, I think, will be Greg Olson from last year, where he'll be one of the more consistent tight ends. He'll still have his junk weeks, but he has the potential like this that he could blow up any given week and give you 100 yards and 2 touchdowns.
We have to temper it with the Raiders, and we have to remember that the Bengals tend to get in these games where they are up. When they win, they get up and then they run the ball. And so I would rather have Olsen than Eifert, despite week 1. I'd happily take any water bets between those two, which I know you guys would not make.
No,
so
we're on the same side.
Yep. So Zach Ertz is another guy that is probably slipped to waivers on a lot of leagues because of his injuries before the season. We were very high on him here at the Fantasy Footballers before the injury and before concerns about snap count. But in a very surprising, possibly game flow orientated because they weren't running the ball situation, he did play 70% of the offensive snaps yesterday. And so he was targeted. He didn't put up a big game. What are your thoughts on Ertz, and would you sign him to your team if you're tight end needy?
Yeah, if I'm tight end needy, if I have one of those low end guys, I'm gonna take the chance on Ertz. His ceiling is just so tremendous, and if he really is gonna continue to get a high level of snaps, that's all he needs. He got targeted. The game didn't come yesterday, but it will because the targets will be there.
So Zach Ertz and ASJ on the waivers. Who do you sign?
Ooh,
I signed Safarian Jenkins.
I would sign
Zach Ertz.
I would sign Zach Ertz as well, just because I think higher power offense. Mike Evans being out really benefited Safarian Jenkins. But the reason I asked the question is because it's a tough question.
Yeah, that is
What
tough.
wasn't part of what we saw last night though with Philadelphia the exact issue that we didn't go over the games very much because we have a lot to get to with waivers. Nelson Aguilar wasn't there. He didn't show up. He was on the field more than any other wide receiver, and the targets weren't there. Other than Jordan Matthews, there was no consistency from production standpoint on that team. And so I'm not really counterpointing it. I'm fine with you grabbing Ertz. He has a better, I think, skill set. He has a better offense, like you said. So I'm actually wavering even on saying Safarian Jenkins. But that being said, I'm worried that it'll be super week to week with Ertz.
Yeah, but most tight ends are that.
Yeah.
And so when it's week to week, who's going to go? I want the guy with the big ceiling.
All right, it's streaming quarterback time, everybody. Alex Smith, who
Maybe.
I was extremely high on before the season, had a monster game, and by game I mean first half. But he put up 3 touchdowns. The offense looked good. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. He's a waiver consideration. Marcus Mariota, Carson Palmer, Joe Flacco playing Oakland this week.
And these are all guys that
Well, that kind of diverts, in my opinion. I don't
Why
think
is that?
Flacco, because Flacco's not I wanted to talk about first the guys that succeeded this week and whether they'll continue that type of thing. Flacco,
Okay.
you know what I mean? So Smith, Mariota, Palmer, and Tyrod Taylor put up very big fantasy weeks. So let's talk about them first, and then we'll kind of rotate to some
That's fine.
streaming options.
That's fine.
So most likely to continue. Are you on the Mariota hype train? Because he's going to be signed by everybody tomorrow in every league.
I am very much on the Mariota hype train for week 2. I don't think he's going to. Well, I don't think he's going to sustain a 4 touchdown, a touchdown every 4 passes pace.
Oh,
but
come on.
He's playing the Browns, and I think he's going to get a healthy dose of Tampa Bay Part 2. And so
You want to hear something crazy, Mike?
No.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, moving on.
Moving on.
Yes.
The line for that game is, at least when it first came out,
The spread or
the spread
okay.
is Cleveland favored by 2.5 points.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
So just keep that in mind.
we're not saying bet games, but no. So I like Mariota against the Browns. I think he can put up a very good matchup. The guy I would say would not sustain personally, just for week 2, if we're talking matchups, is Tyrod Taylor. I think that
Really?
and here's why. Bill Belichick. I've said this before. I said this a lot last year. Week 2 is very different for a quarterback who's got some tape on him now in the system they're running. And we saw that Kirk Cousins comes in, has his monster game, last year. And then week 2, once a team can actually game plan for a man, you've got Tyrod Taylor being game planned with tape by Bill Belichick. That worries me.
I completely agree with you.
I think it's fair, but I also think that the New England defense is very suspect. And Ben, if you looked at what happened last week, Taylor is not Big Ben, But aside from touchdowns, Big Ben destroyed that defense with passing yards. And I think Taylor has the weapons, and the Bills' defense is so good that I think Taylor is a good option for next week.
Speaking of running yards that we should talk about, Jason apparently destroyed the scoring system in one of our leagues. Is that correct?
We're talking about that?
Yeah, we're talking about that.
The destruction was more reliant of he didn't put decimal scoring in.
Wait, what? Didn't you say that quarterbacks don't get any rushing yards in the league?
Because I saw Teddy Bridgewater run for 6 yards, but he hadn't been awarded any points yet because he hadn't hit the threshold.
Oh, I thought he had turned off rushing yards for quarterbacks.
That's what I thought so too.
You've fallen into my trap. I made you all draft.
No
Cam
wonder he
Newton.
drafted all those pocket quarterbacks. I thought it was just funny, so I wanted to bring it up. Speaking of bringing things up, Joseph Randle or Darren McFadden, who had more touches based on our water bet?
Well, considering that
Who had more touches?
Considering Darren McFadden had about 10 snaps, it was Joseph Randle. Oh, you think that you're so awesome.
The
Wait,
soundboard is frozen.
While you get that soundboard ready,
Splash.
also
Mike is wet. Mike is wet.
Mike is
just
wet.
hit it again.
Yeah, you can hit
Wait.
it again because
Splash.
Teddy Bridgewater did not
Teddy
show up.
Bridgewater sucked a butt yesterday. Good grief.
I had Cam versus Teddy week 1. And
So I'm dry. I am dry this week. I did not lose a bet.
so I got 1 coming. Mike's got 2
two coming, and bring them on.
So back to the quarterback. Alex Smith is
Fair
playing
enough.
Alex Smith is playing Denver. I'm not looking to stream him. Carson Palmer has a great matchup against
That's
the Bears.
Thursday Night Football, by the way. Reminder for
Right.
those starting Alex Smith.
Carson Palmer has another great matchup. I would pick him up and play him a week. And Joe Flacco against Oakland. So later on in the week, we're going to pick our official streamers, but I just want to get the word out that if you are a streamer, these are guys that you're looking to add.
I agree. All right, guys, give me some defenses as well. We'll talk about them later in the week, but waivers are tomorrow morning. And so if you can kind of snake a good defense for week 2, it makes a huge difference on your team. It's one of the, you do 2 or 3 things like this, you increase your odds of winning in these leagues immensely. And one of them is sign your defense on waiver morning before people think about grabbing another defense for the weekend. And so good matchups this week for you, Jason.
From the waiver, I would say the Saints.
Until further notice, Team X that plays against Tampa Bay will be the stream of the week.
2 interception guarantee.
Yeah, right. A 2 interception guarantee.
I wonder if there's a Vegas line on over/under. Jameis Winston pick 6s.
Yeah, so I would say them. I like the Rams against the Redskins.
Oh yeah.
Most of the other guys that I like are probably on rosters. They're worth
Possible they're not though.
Yeah, worth mentioning. I like the Lions against the Vikings, who did not look that good, and the Dolphins, of course, are going to be beastly.
And the Ravens against Oakland.
Yeah,
Those are all
Oakland's
plus
likely
matchups.
starting McGloin. But
That guy
Right.
that is the best backup quarterback name I've ever heard.
McGloin.
Yeah. McGloin.
Do you see that Luke McCown commercial that's been
Yes.
they keep playing it the back. I'm like, that guy finally got some ad money.
And speaking of commercials, it got played about 10,000 times, so it's already kind of not funny. That Slim Jim commercial where the guys have the broken down car and they get
that's
picked up
funny
by the
stuff,
Amish
dude.
gentleman.
And he goes, and they're like, "What's life like without the internet?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "I get pictures of your mom through the mail." I get my pictures of your mom through the mail.
That's funny.
Very well done, Slim
Yes.
Jim.
So okay, let's go ahead and talk some mailbag.
Mailbag.
I just can't wait for that end of the year episode when all our well done. When all of our season long water bets happen, and I can hit splash like 20 times on you.
It's 40 minutes of the splash.
All right,
drop.
if you have a question for the show, it's easy. You go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, and click the Submit a Question button. We select a few for every episode, and we try to answer them via email, Twitter, that type of thing. Also, you can call us, 302-464-TFFB. Leave us a voicemail question. We like to play those on the show as well. Is this the right time to mention that Tony Meatball has an official Twitter page?
That is the best time.
You
to
know,
mention.
you never know if it's an imposter Tony Meatball until you validate it, and I validated it, and it is the real Tony Meatball.
Is he Twitter verified yet?
He's not Twitter. No, he has 2 followers. No, but it's the real Tony Meatball. So stay tuned. I'm sure he'll call us again. All right, Sam in Massachusetts said,
It's at FF Meatball, right? You said he talked about his account, and then you don't give the handle.
It's at Tony Meatball.
Oh, is it?
Tony Meatball or Tony Meatballs? Actually, when it first came out, he misspelled the Y. It was like Tone Meatball, and then I let him know, and he fixed it, and so we're in good shape.
Okay, Sam in Ma wants to know, fellas, I have Miller, Forsett, Abdullah, Woodhead, and Niall Davis. Assuming I am not putting Eddie Royal or Andre Johnson in my flex, which 3 running backs should I run? P.S. Starting wide receivers are Julio, Steve Smith, and the Target Monster. So we have Miller, Forsett, Abdullah, Woodhead.
Miller, Forsett, Abdullah, Woodhead, and he needs 3.
Correct.
I'm still, despite week 1, going to roll Miller and Forsett. I think both of them have decent matchups.
I agree.
This week as well. And so then, to me, it comes down to Abdullah versus Woodhead. 2 very good options, both in similar roles. So you go and look at matchup. The Lions are going to be playing the Vikings, and the San Diego Chargers are playing the Bengals. So I would go with the Lions.
And you would, yes, you are correct. I would play Abdullah.
I agree. All right, Henry in Los Angeles. Hey, guys, I found your advice in the offseason, and I actually own James Jones, Stevie Johnson, Kendall Wright, and Tyler Eifert. I know I'm starting. You don't own James Jones on any. Don't give me credit for that. Everyone else you can say we've talked about. I know I'm starting Johnson and Eifert in week 2, but I'm having trouble deciding my flex between Wright, Cooper, and Jones. Who would you guys start in week 2?
As in Amari Cooper?
Yeah.
You play Amari Cooper.
Really?
In week 2, I probably play Kendall Wright.
Yeah, me too. Against the Browns
because
versus
Cooper has no car against the Ravens.
Oh yeah.
And
I
Kendall
wasn't
Wright.
factoring. I was not
McGloin.
Did not add in the McGloin factor.
Oh, McGloin. I love that.
That's what we will say every interception that comes flying.
Now, I think that there's a good chance Derek Carr actually plays this week.
Yeah,
he definitely could. His X-rays were all negative, so that would be a very, very, very good sign for the Amari Cooper owners of the world, because you need a quarterback to catch the ball as a wide receiver. That is a little-known fact, breaking news. Josh in Matamita, Minnesota. That place doesn't exist. All right, my team is solid except for a tight end. I have Delaney Walker. How much should I bid on Eifert with a $100 budget?
Oof.
Interesting question. That is great because we have to put that into terms. There's 2 answers to that. There's the answer of how much is he worth, and then there's the answer of how much will your league mates actually pay for him.
Yes,
and that's the number you want to find.
The second question is far more important. You have to know your league. How do they bid? Do they come out of the gates? But
a lot of people don't bid week 1, just for the record. They try to save their money, and so they don't overspend week 1.
But honestly, I would be aggressive to get Eifert on my team. I think he's going to be very solid for the year.
Would you spend $30?
No, not that much, but 15.
That's exactly the number I wrote down. Is $15. I think that's
see it on his paper.
And so I would actually nudge that to be 16 or 17 to make sure
get over one of those easy thresholds that somebody would put in there.
Yep.
Because people will put in like 10, 5, 15.
Pro tip,
go 16.
11, 16, 6.
Well,
I will say the worst feeling in the world is when you put in like $16 and then the next highest bidder was like $1 and you're like, no.
Have you ever? We haven't talked about eBay. But
eBay?
Yeah. Well, when you're bidding on eBay, you got to throw in the little bit of the awkward number if you want a guaranteed results.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you're right. We haven't talked eBay on this fantasy football show
I don't know
yet.
why that came out of my mouth, that particular phrase.
Moving
on.
on.
Of eBay talk
tomorrow,
later
eBay. How to bid.
It's all eBay all tomorrow. It's our eBay tutorial show. All right, Ryan in Las Vegas. Last question we have time for right now. Better PPR pickups: Sproles, Sankey, Matt Jones, or David Johnson for the rest of this season? Wow, we had that question kind of earlier.
Plus Sankey.
So Obviously, Ryan, Jason thinks it's Sproles. I wouldn't put Sankey into a PPR category. I mean,
I agree.
No.
I'm just saying Sankey wasn't in the conversation earlier.
But are you sticking with Sproles then or no?
No, I'm not.
Wow.
Looking at these names on here, and I heard, my take and your take. I think both are great, but I do Darren Sproles, what he did week 1, that is, what I hope to get in any given week, and probably his ceiling maybe plus a touchdown. David Johnson has a chance to really do, something special on the year and take over the role. So I would go David Johnson, Darren Sproles, Bishop Sankey.
I stick with that order as well.
Yeah.
All right, tomorrow. Let's talk about tomorrow's show.
eBay.
Pure eBay. It's an hour of eBay with Mike. He'll be doing the show alone. But all your hot tips coming. No. We've got more news and notes. We've got a mailbag show. We're going to answer a lot of questions looking at week 2 because we have a ton of other questions. We haven't talked about guys like Allen Robinson and some other. He wasn't in our Poop the Big Boys section, was it?
That's true, but hot tip. If you can acquire Allen Robinson from a panicking owner, I would do it.
Yeah, and so tomorrow is a mailbag show, so stay tuned, listen to that. We'll have lots of good information for you. We'll start bending things towards week 2 somehow. We're in week 2 of the regular season, and we've got lots coming up for the rest of the week. We've got all our matchup previews. We got DFS talk. We have
our rankings should be up tomorrow as well.
Correct. The rankings will be up probably, I'm guessing, late tonight. That is my guess.
Whoa.
Don't you put that evil on me.
Yeah, well, mine will be. And so our week 2 rankings, some guys to sign, and lots of good information. Any parting thoughts, gentlemen?
Nope.
Dreams do come
Yes.
true. Thank you, Ryan Matthews.
Yes, if you have any dreams, please share them with @JasonFFL. He loves to talk dreams. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at www.thefantasyfootballers.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.